Hello and welcome to Asia Gaming Brief's face-to-face series. Today I'm talking with Tina Sablan. She's a Democratic representative to the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands legislature. We're going to be talking about the very high likelihood that Imperial Pacific is going to get its license revoked to operate a casino. And we're going to talk about what the resulting future may look like for gaming. Hi, Tina. Thank you very much for joining us today. Since we last spoke late last year, there's been some fairly major developments on gaming in Saipan. Can you bring us up to date?
Since the last interview I did with your colleague, IPI's license has been suspended, and now the next sort of logical step is revocation. I understand that there are additional complaints forthcoming. These are administrative complaints that would be filed by the Casino Commission's executive director and adjudicated by the casino commissioners. The next logical step is revocation, and I think that's really what everybody is just waiting on now.
So in terms of other complaints, what is likely to be forthcoming?
Well, I mean, the IPI still has not cured the breaches that were the subjects of previous complaints. So they still have not paid the license. They still have not paid the regulatory fee. They have not complied, and you know there have been fines and that were assessed previously as well. Those have not been paid.
If this license is revoked, what would you say would be the future for gaming on Saipan? I mean, we started off with so much hope. There were so many big figures and promises made. What now?
Well, and I mean, I think that there were always questions from the very beginning about how sustainable this industry was going to be, at least with the very grandiose promises that were being made and the very big numbers, as you put it, that were being thrown around. There were questions about how realistic this was, you know, to expect that it would work at the scale and that it was being planned, right? And you know, and I think that those fears have really worn out. And you know, in terms of the future of the industry, I mean, like, the future of tourism is very much uncertain, certainly for us, but I think for tourism-based economies around the world. Our continued access to Chinese tourists, which was the main market for this gaming industry, that is also in doubt. And you know, we don't expect Chinese tourism to open up anytime soon. And you know, we recently had a meeting with the Marianas Visitors Authority. And in 2017, the MVA had commissioned a study on tourism sustainability for the CNMI. And there actually was a section of that study that said that, you know, where these researchers, these tourism experts said even then that the plans that IPI had put forth were really not sustainable and not ideal for, just given all the different conditions, right? Our remoteness, our limited access to workers, all of that. And so they had recommended even then that we scale back some of these plans and really make it fit with the environment and with what made sense for our island economy. And nobody really paid attention to that. And so I asked about it at this meeting just last week with the Marianas Visitors Authority. You know, what is the future of gaming for our tourism economy? And they had recently just come out with this 10-year strategic plan for tourism recovery, you know, how to restart tourism in the CNMI. And I asked, is gaming part of your 10-year plan? And the answer was no.
Would the government consider retendering, putting that license out for retender again?
There are some discussions about how we would move forward when this license is revoked. with IPI. And there is currently on the table a proposal to authorize two casino licenses, so it would not be an exclusive license. There are proposals to, well, that's one. But I think that it would be worthwhile to examine whether we even want a casino industry in the CNMI and whether it even makes sense for us, right? And at the same time, there is a proposal right now to legalize internet gaming, which I think brings with it all kinds of other risks and concerns about money laundering in particular, and also about our capacity to regulate it.
What will happen to the physical infrastructure? You have one giant building site in the middle of your tourism district. What happens to that?
Great question. So yeah, it's unfinished. It's unsightly. It's in the heart of our tourist district. It's enormous, and IPI is at this time requesting a 5-year extension to complete construction in their Garapan project. And there has been no decision on that yet. They submitted the request to the governor. He does have concurrent enforcement authority over the casino license. And I think that the Casino Commission is also reviewing the request. But here's the thing, IPI has also been very recently barred by the federal government from the H-2B and CW worker programs. And so, the question, the sort of obvious question that has been asked again and again is, how will IPI even marshal up all the workers that they'll need, the skilled workers that they'll need, which are not immediately available in the CNMI? How will they find the workers to even finish this project? They're barred from the foreign worker programs for 5 years, starting from November 2020. So even just the prospect for finishing construction, is very much in doubt. And I don't know, there have also been questions about the structural integrity of what is there, right? And if you have exposed metals and just this unfinished construction site languishing, exposed to the elements for 5 years, what does that mean for, just in terms of how will you even finish this project? And even if finished, can we really provide any assurance that it will be safe and habitable?
So I guess the big question is, where would the funding come from for all of this?
Right. That's, it's always just kind of the same response, right? IPI's audited financial statements have been pretty consistent in these last few years, in the sense that the auditors have expressed doubts that IPI will be able to continue as a going concern. IPI has, they've made some claims to have access to significant loan facilities. I've heard upwards of half $500 million, but we have yet to really see that. They've made claims about being able to, or hoping to be able to, entice new investors. Part of their, I guess, negotiating strategy is to get the government to lower their fees, lower IPI's liabilities, give them a break on the license fee and the regulatory fee, and then give them these construction deadline extensions. And on top of that, legalize internet gaming and make IPI the exclusive internet gaming operator. And then what they say is that then they will be in a position to reset and recover and finish this project.
Have there been expressions of interest from any other operators?
I've heard that there may be potential operators, but nothing can really happen. Nothing serious can really move forward unless this license is suspended and unless we have a clear slate, which we do not. And, I think just being very candid, I think the government also has some cleaning up to do just internally, like just rebuilding the credibility that we've lost as a place to do business. And, I think the government also bears some responsibility for the mess that we're in. It's not entirely on IPI. I will also note that the gaming committee that I am a member of in the House has begun an oversight investigation into the governance and compliance and financial failures that are affecting IPI and the gaming industry and the CNMI. Part of that investigation is looking into the role that the government played at every level, whether it was with labor violations that were ignored or not acted upon, construction site, like just workplace safety violations, IPI's failure to pay taxes on time, IPI's failure to comply with environmental regulations, reporting requirements. I mean, you name it. It's a long record that we are now beginning to understand better of the government also failing to do its part.
Would any other operator actually want to take over this project? I mean, it's a bit of a white elephant. I think anybody coming in might prefer to start from scratch.
Right. I would think so. I think that there's been a lot of, I think part of the difficulty is that there's been just this constant revolving door, right, of IPI executives and casino construction managers and contractors. And it's not even clear that there are permitted, stamped construction drawings that have been approved by our Department of Public Works. DPW has stopped work several times for some of these violations. I understand some of the construction was done with shop drawings that were made in China in different languages, and then there were different teams working on different parts of the design. I mean, and then safety issues too that have plagued this project from the beginning, and also a revolving door of safety inspectors that may or may not have had the ability to report and make corrections when they saw problems on the site.
So if they do go ahead and revoke this license, it seems really quite likely now, would they actually be able to retender, because there's so many legal challenges pending right now?
It's very possible. Some of these lawsuits that have been awarded judgments, it took years to get to judgment, right? And now, IPI is also appealing some of these cases, and you're right, it could take years. We could be entangled in this for years.
So in terms of the tourism industry on Saipan, going forward now, how do you view the future?
I guess the short term, there has been some hope of opening, a travel bubble with Korea to begin with. And I guess there has been some expressions of interest with our Korean travel partners to test out these sort of pilot programs that would include incentives for the airlines and incentives even for tourists to come to the CNMI. We've been fortunate to have been, quite safe at this point. I mean, the governor just declared that we are now in the green zone, which is, and so a lot of the curfews have been canceled. We're at 60% vaccination. The goal is to get to 80, 85%. But people are still pretty good about wearing masks, and so according to the MVA anyway, they're seeing some hope in reopening tourism, slowly and cautiously, but also creating these incentives, beginning with the Korean market and then possibly expanding from there.
Thanks for joining us. I've been talking with Tina Sablan. Join us every Friday for Asia Gaming Brief's face-to-face series, where we talk with thought leaders in Asia's gaming industry.